In this module, we're going to discuss active learning. So what is active learning? Active learning, put it simply, is a way to engage your students. It's to increase student participation with the material that you're presenting. Active learning is beneficial because it's going to enhance a student's learning by improving their performance during class and on assignments. So back in 1946, there was an educator named Edgar Dale who developed the cone of experience. And I know by now you're probably like, educators have a thing with pyramids. Well, apparently they do, because it's another shaped pyramid. But what's this showing you is the percentage in which students retain information based upon how they're presenting that material. Now, I don't necessarily agree 100% with the percentages that's listed on the left-hand side, but I do agree with the theory behind it. And what it's showing you in the blue, that's what we call passive learning. So things like reading a textbook, or hearing a lecture, or looking at images, watching videos, going to exhibits, or watching a demonstration. So you can see here over on the left-hand side, this is the percentage that it is believed to be, the percentage of the amount of information we retain by doing those passive learning experiences. And then you get down here at the bottom, and this is what we were just talking about with active learning. Active learning is engaging students in the material. So maybe it is participating in a workshop, or having students design lessons, simulate a model or experience a phenomenon, or design or perform a presentation or an experience. Active learning are really hands-on engagement with the learning material. And really, if you think back on all your experiences in your K-12 education, if I asked you to reflect on a lesson and be able to tell me about a lesson, it's probably going to be one down here at the bottom. And that are lessons that are active, engaging. Those are the ones that students tend to retain. So you may have heard this saying before, but if not, there's a saying in education. It says, rather than be a sage on the stage, be a guide on the side. So basically what that means is there are time and place for lecture where you are the center of the stage. You are the one that is presenting all the content. But really the lessons that students are going to remember are ones in which you are a guide on the side, where you're more or less a facilitator of learning, rather than being the main one that's presenting the content. Now, I know many of you have mentioned in past discussions or assignments how you would incorporate lecture into your lessons. Again, there is a time and place for lecture, but I would really encourage you, if you're going to use a lecture in your classes, is to also include active learning activities. So you can kind of see a guide here for if you're doing a lecture. You start out with a lecture, but then you pause. Remember, we talked about attention span a couple of weeks ago. Our students do not have a very long attention span. So if you're going to do a lecture, you're going to need to break it up with some type of activity in between. And that's really what we're going to give examples of this week. So speaking of example active learning strategies, you can see down here they go from simple to more complex. I would encourage you to maybe take a screenshot of this this visual here so you have it to reference on in the future. But you can see some of those simple activities could just be a pause for reflection. It could be a think, pair, share. It could be informal grouping. Now you get up to more complex, so you could do things like role playing, case studies, doing games or simulations, which we'll talk about, doing experiential learning, hands-on technology. All of those are really going to get your students involved in the content. It's going to get them engaged. It's also going to get them excited about their learning. So gamification is a great active learning strategy. A lot of us can probably recall some of the games that we played in class. And I don't care if you're teaching kindergarten or you're teaching 12th grade. All of our students appreciate a game. So if you think about gaming, that's going to, incorporate things like rewards or competition or achievements. Students are learning, but at the same time, they don't even realize they're learning because they're playing a game. It's engaging and it's fun. So some benefits include increased engagement. You can really personalize games, so this is where differentiation comes into play. Involve students to think critically. It gets them collaborating with their classmates. For a lot of your students that have test anxiety, You know, it really can reduce anxiety or stress by playing a game, and plus it's going to really improve your classroom management, because those struggling learners, those students that are not normally engaged, are really going to want to participate if you're playing a game. I wanted to show you, thinking back on all the games, and I probably played at least every other day we were playing games in my math class, but one of the games that I'm probably most proud of when I think back on it, and I do have a copy of one of my students' work when we did this, is my entire team for 7th grade, we were the Avalanche team. We got together and played a game called The Amazing Race. You've probably seen that on TV. But what we did was we set up our classrooms with different countries, and our students got these passports here, and it was chaotic, but it was so much fun. Our students were running around from class to class. They had to get their passports stamped in each class, and they had to answer questions from math to social studies to language arts to science. We incorporated every single subject area. And you could see they had these little worksheets that they had to fill out. At the bottom, the teacher that was in the classroom had to stamp it. And we decorated the classrooms in all the different countries. And then the team that got, to the end of the race first got a prize at the end. But all of our students had so much fun. I remember a student came back to me years later after she was in high school and actually talked to me about that day and how she remembers it. So I would encourage you, it doesn't have to be anything elaborate like that, but some examples of some games you could play. We all love a game of Jeopardy. Maybe you can play 20 questions, the headbands game, bingo, four corners, beach ball toss, charades. I had my students create their own integer board game and played it with each other. Now we know now that it's, we're in the 21st century, there are so many online tools that you can use to create games with your students. Not even that, you don't even have to create games. You can just Google for online games to play based upon the lesson that you're teaching. So Quizlet, Kahoot, Jeopardy Lab is a great way to create your own Jeopardy game. Booklet, Crossword Puzzle Makes, Educate, Gaming Lab, all of those are fantastic online tools that you can use to create your own games. So now let's take a look at the assignments that you have for this week. Your first assignment for this week is to read through pages 65 to 106 of your text. The main reason why I chose this textbook was just the amount of active learning strategies and activities that are provided to you. So I would encourage you, take this book with you into your future classroom and use some of these active learning strategies. Your first assignment that you're turning in is your classroom observation. So you should have all completed a classroom observation by this point. If you need a copy of the form that I have been emailing out to you, it is posted here. Make sure you list at the top that the teacher that you observed, because I will be following up with them to thank them for their time and allowing you to come into your classroom. Be very specific in your report about what you observe in that classroom. Your second assignment is an active learning and gamification Padlet. So for this assignment, you will click here to access our Padlet. You are going to post in each of these three columns. When you add a post here, your subject should be your name. So put your name at the top. In each one of these columns, the first thing you're going to do is find an active learning strategy from the reading that you plan to incorporate into your classroom, a brief description of how that activity works, and then you're going to research outside of the text. So this could be through Google. I will certainly allow you to use AI for this. What is an active learning strategy that you have found from your research that you plan to use for the lesson that you've been building throughout this semester? And then last but not least, a game that you can incorporate as part of your lesson. So be specific in how this would work. The goal is, the reason why we've set this up as a Padlet is so you can visually see everyone's post from our class. And I'm hoping that through this Padlet that you're going to gain some ideas that you can use in your future classroom. The last assignment that you're going to complete is a note to future self. So again, what are some of these active learning strategies and assessments and activities that you could foresee using in your classroom that you want to remind yourself of when you become a teacher? If you have any questions at all about the assignments for this week, please just let me know.